Good afternoon. My topic is demographic change in rural China, the implication for technology innovation in agriculture. That means how farmers adapted to the situation because demographic change. China has experienced the largest peaceful migration in human history since the reform started. What happens to the agriculture production, rural labor market, and how farmers adapted to the situation by changing the production practice and changing the product? That's what we want to know in case what policy we need for the future. In the last 30 years, the share of rural labor force in the total declined from 70% to 34.8%, declined by half. That implies already 273 million workers have moved out of agriculture. However, if we look at the agriculture production, the real GDP in agriculture sector increased by 4.56% per year, and grain production increased by 1.6% per year, well above the population growth rate. So the agriculture production did not affect negatively by such migration. And of course, another interesting thing is, although so large amount of rural workers have moved out of agriculture, the more labor-intensive vegetable production increased by 5 times. The sown area, the share in vegetable increased by from 2% in the total to 12% in the total. So, what's the explanation for such contrast? So large workers have moved out, and yet more labor-intensive production of vegetable increased so fast. What's a demographic change in rural China and farmers' adaptation to the change? That's what we want to know. Okay, the upper picture is the total share, the rural population share and the rural workers share in the total. The share declined from 70% to 35%. But the bottom picture is the absolute number of rural population and the rural labor. If we look at the green line in the bottom picture, the rural labor force did not decrease very much in the 30 years, the absolute number, because of the natural growth of the rural population. And because the total number did not decrease, the ratio of labor to land did not increase very much. And so that's why we do not have absolute labor shortage in the rural area and in agriculture. Here is the change in the vegetable production. No matter you look at the absolute number of the sown area to vegetable or the vegetables sown area share in the total, it increased very fast. That's another evidence that we do not have absolute shortage in labor supply in rural area. Otherwise, we won't see such change increase in the labor-intensive vegetable production. This is another picture of demographic change in rural area. We do not think the Euro sample survey of rural population change is correct, because if we do conduct sample survey, if we found some rural house have no member left at home, we change to the other. So those households already moved out is already ruled out from the sample. To get a clear picture, we conducted a village-wide household survey. We take the whole village as one sample, including those already moved out. That means we need some people from the village to do that. Because each village usually consists of around 30 households. Most of them are relatives or close neighbors. If we have someone from that village to conduct household survey, if they consult some older people in the village, they can have all the information regarding those households. So that's what we did in the 2010 and 2011 in the winter. We surveyed 5 provinces. We select counties according to per capita income. Equal interval, we select 20 counties from each of the 5 provinces. Altogether, we get 2 villages in one county. So we have 203 villages, more than 7,000 households, and more than 28 people we conducted. If we look at the center blue line, that's the number of the percentage of population in each age group stayed at home more than 10 months a year. That's we consider the permanent rural residents. And the pink or red means already moved out. And the yellow one is those people already moved out for more than 9 months a year. And a small percent between the yellow one and the blue one means those people move from the working place and the home village in a year, in 6 months, 10 months, and so on. Okay, and I should say the population is here. Population pyramid is not smooth. It has a big gap in some area. Because here we have a small gap. That means the people in this age was born during the big famine period in the early 1960s. After 20-25 years, the population growth will repeat its cycle. And in the middle of 1980s, China started one child per family policy. Then the gap enlarged and then repeated 25 years later. Okay. Here is the population stayed at home village more than 10 months a year. Among the 28,000 people, there were about 9,000 people stayed home more than 1 year, more than 10 months a year, between 16 and 65. Among those 9,000 people, about 1/3 of them primarily engaged in farm production. And if we look at the age group, okay, most of them are middle-aged or relatively old. These figures tell us after 20 years, when those people retire or pass away, the rural labor force will shrink significantly. We cannot expect their grandsons go back to agriculture. They will stay in non-agricultural work or just move out. So the current situation in rural labor force is rapid aging, and the potential in the future is a quick shrinking in 20 or 30 years. After 30 years, I guess the rural labor force probably will go down to 10% of the current size. The consequences of demographic change is that if we look at the current situation, we do not have absolute shortage of labor supply, but the labor costs increase very quickly because the wage rate, the general economic growth, and so on. So farmers is facing the situation of increasing labor costs. What they could do? They will substitute inputs in favorable areas. They will substitute machine for labor. in plain areas, in the flat areas, or they will change the production from the low input, low output grain production to high value products. Because if they shift to high value production, they could afford to pay high wage rates to the hired laborers. That's the two alternatives farmers could take. So if they, under what conditions they can substitute machine for labor. That means the technical possibility is the area is flat, plain area, not hilly areas, not mountain areas. And the economic viability is the economy of scale in machinery operation. They do not have to buy machine for themselves working on a 1 acre or 1 hectare size farm. It's not economically viable. But if they can get machinery services from some specialized household, and those specialized household could working 4 months, 5 months a year, they could provide services from down south, from the Hainan Island, far south to the far north in Heilongjiang province. So their economy of scale is much bigger than the US farmers because they could work 4 months a year operating from very far south to very far north. And we need some institutional change to facilitate farmers to use such machinery services. We need organization changes to enable the small farmers to negotiate with those providers in collective manner also. But for those farmers in hilly areas and mountainous areas, they cannot change, they cannot substitute machine for labor. So what they could do, they change their production from a low value grain crops to high value vegetables and fruits. The technical possibility is that the location, the climate of the location is favorable to do that. And the economic viability is the output value is high enough to compensate for the high labor costs. And those production areas best close to population center with high income urban people, they could buy these things. And we need to improve the marketing chain to provide the opportunity for such income distribution among farmers and other people. Okay. One important constraint is seasonality of labor. For some production, especially, for example, the six-wall production, they require labor very, very demanding for just 1 week or so in a season. For those kind of production, you cannot have labor supply because at this seasonality, when one family need to hire people, everyone wants to. When one family have surplus labor to provide in off-season, every family has. For such production, they will change to the low income level areas. People, no other choice. They have to live with such a situation. Or in some areas, they can have other seasonal labor demand in other production, so they can provide their labor to different production. Okay, that's the evidence from coastal provinces. In Jiangsu province, in the last 15 years, grain production did not decline because farmers substitute machine for labor in the plain area. But in the Guangdong province, Fujian province, Zhejiang province, grain production declined by 45%, 27% or 25% respectively, because it's a hilly areas, mountainous area, they have no choice. They cannot substitute machine for labor. But for vegetable production, it increased in all those 4 coastal regions. And for silkworm production, it used to be here in the Yangtze River Delta. But because the labor costs increased, the silkworm production in Jiangsu province declined by 65%, despite the fact that the vegetable production increased doubled or even tripled. The silkworm production now moved to Guangxi province, where the climate allows farmers to raise silkworm more times in a year, so they can raise silkworm 8 times a year or so. They can have more smooth labor demand for their production. Future trend, continue aging and rapid shrinking in 20, 30 years. For the production lower value book commodity, we are concentrated relatively in the plain areas. And the high value products will move to hidden areas, especially those close to the population center, to high value, to high income population center. So, I guess my time is out. So the conclusion is quite obvious. We need technology innovation to facilitate such change. We need institutional change also to facilitate this change. The bottom line is that we need to find a way to smooth labor demand in rural area to overcome the difficulty created by labor demand bottleneck because of seasonality in agricultural production. Thank you.